Marty is here to say hello too.
Fun. Evening, yeah. So
Oh, look at Marty. There's Marty's other friend across the way. Everybody's got one.
I don't have one, but I actually do have
sorry, Kate.
randomly this beanie baby near me. Yeah, I just moved, so there's just items around. Maybe just to kind of as a filler for like while we're waiting for folks to join, if people want to just put in the chat where they're joining from. Oh, wow. That's really late in Hong Kong then. It's got to be like 1 a.m. Alabama. Cool. All right. Well, I think we'll just wait for people to drop in, but awesome. Cool. Right.
What part of Edinburgh are you in, Nat?
I always say sunny Edinburgh, even though it's barely ever sunny. I don't know why.
It's a nice positive thought.
I like it.
From sunny Edinburgh.
Awesome. Well, my suggestion as we kick off, and then people will join as they join. But welcome everyone, and welcome from everyone joining all over. And we stayed up very late. It is freezing here in Chicago, but and for folks watching this later, which I think will be quite a few. So I'm Kate, I'm from CSTA. We do periodic webinars about really great classroom resources and products that we recommend. And I will hand it off to the folks that do Marty and kind of learn more about it today.
Great. Thank you so much for that. Can you hear me okay? Fab. So Marty's joining me here today, as well as my colleague Michael, who is our learning experience manager in Robotical. Michael designs all the kind of learning and teaching materials that come along with Marty, and is responsible for our education strategy, as well as very delighted to have Chris here with us, who is a teacher from Burlington, Ontario in Canada, very close to where I grew up. And Chris is going to talk to us about his experience of having Marty in the classroom. Chris is actually one of the first teachers to have Marty V2 when the version 2 of Marty was just released late in 2020. So Chris was one of the first ones to kind of try and implement Marty V2 in his classroom. So we're very, very excited to hear about Chris's experience. But if everybody's okay, I have a really super short video, just 1 minute, to show the latest feature that we just released called Marty Box Jr. This specifically is the feature that kind of bridges from the screen-free unplugged coding that we have available with Marty and the scratch-based Marty blocks that we have in the app as well. So that kind of is based on Scratch Junior, so it's for pre-readers, the younger learners, and it's symbol and icon-based block coding that we've implemented specifically for Marty. And I'll just share my screen and play that just now. always forget that my version always ends kind of a little bit abruptly. Um, just quite in the middle of the song. So for those of us who joined us just now, I'll just go over super quickly on what we're going to cover today and what you can expect from this webinar. So Chris here will share his experience with his K-5 classes with using Marty, cover how Marty compares to other robots that he's used in his class, and talk about how Marty meets curriculum standards as well as cross-curricular adaptations that he's done for his students. And then we'll take it over to Michael, who will take you through the Robotical learning portal, introduce you to one of our lessons, the different components that a lesson plan has, and Marty Box Jr. answer any questions about our learning and teaching materials, and then talk about working to individual learners' needs to really kind of be very inclusive when it comes to either very young learners or learners who are slightly disengaged. And please ask any questions throughout the session in the chat. I'll make sure that the guys pick it up and answer those. So yeah, take it away, Chris.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I'm actually really excited to be here because I've got Marty a little bit of like a history of it. I was actually on my school Twitter flying around, and I saw an ad for Marty pop up about a free trial, and I was like, hey, you know what? I'm gonna give this a go because when I first started, I started in teaching kindergarten, so the young kids were there. I hadn't really found a robot that could really reach them. We had been using certain different ones, but they were kind of basic. You know, doing the remote control with them. The kids loved the interaction with them, but we hadn't really found one that the kids could really relate to. So I said, I'll give this a go. And then, you know, certain things happened around the world and things got delayed, but eventually Marty showed up at our doorstep, and right off the initial thought, I was like, whoa, this is, the box comes, it looked pretty intense up for it. And then I opened up the box and Marty was there. He showed up, a lot of excitement. So I actually had a grade 2 class when he showed up. So we opened the box together, and I couldn't believe the excitement that came from the students. Super happy, super excited, going, whoa, what is that? And when it comes very, you know, no stickers, nothing. And then as we opened the box, bag of stickers with it. The kids just absolutely went wild for it. They were so excited. They, you know, with the shape of Marty, it looks like a real robot. So they were very excited, super like, can I touch it? Can I play with it? And actually that grade 2 class was lucky it came when it did, because they were the ones that got to design our Marty with all the stickers. But again, it was that excitement, that engagement. I had never seen such excitement engagement on students before. You know, like I've had different robots in the classroom, and I didn't see them like as excited as they were for Marty. So it took a little bit of a learning curve the first time we set it up. You know, we had to make sure the batteries were in, you know, we got one of the pre-assembled models, so it was really nice. I do love the fact that you can get an unassembled model and put it together with a group. I'm hoping that you can still do that. But you know, when we got it, it was a little bit of a learning curve figuring it out. I had really great support from Robotical with Marty, helping guide me in the right directions, making sure that everything was set up, everything was ready. They're very quick at answering emails. So if I had an email about something, you know, they were very quick at getting it back to me. And then I started bringing it out to the little guys. So I brought it down to a kindergarten class. In Canada, that's age 3 to 6. And they were all super excited about it. They couldn't wait. And when we got it, we got these color coding cards with them, and it made life so much easier to run the robotics with these color coding cards. The kids absolutely loved it. They love setting it up. I'm going to share a screen here with you. Let's see here. If I can find the So if you're on my screen, on the left-hand picture, well, my left-hand picture, you'll see Marty with no stickers, nothing. That was the first day we got him. And then as you can see, we were just doing a lesson on Scratch right behind it. And the kids were like, the first thing the kids were asking me was, can we connect this to Scratch? So we had been teaching Scratch for a while. The kids were asking, can we connect this to Scratch? And it was nice that I had an answer that yes, we can connect it to Scratch to make it, because they loved Scratch, they loved the thing, but they really wanted to connect something to it so they could all get that opportunity to work with it. And then as Marty kept growing and evolving over time, you can see on the right there, he fully stickered out. And we are actually working with Scratch Jr. there with a young group. So that again was ages 3 to 6. They were able to drag and drop the little images down using Scratch Jr. But again, it was mostly the excitement and the engagement that I really liked. Everybody wanted a turn. Everybody was engaged. Everybody wanted to learn how to run Marty, how to get an opportunity to use Marty and get that instant gratification that comes from, I put this on Scratch, I press play, he does the moves. I had kids asking me in the halls as I walked down, do we get to play with Marty today? Do I get a turn with him? And everything was amazing. Our administrators here, I brought them in to see a couple lessons with it, loved it. They were like, wow, these kids are so happy. They're so enthusiastic. And we are fortunate enough to have some, the technology to run with these, with Marty. And, I really felt just right off the start, like this is a robot that, hey, you know what? We can work it from a kindergarten all the way up to grade 8. Our school only goes to grade 6, but it really shows that this robot can reach even our youngest learners. And that's where I always found the trickiest part with robotics was connecting with our youngest learners. And then as time grew on, here's a picture of the younger kids working with the color coding cards, getting Marty to walk. They got an opportunity to just play with the cards and make their own mazes. As you can see, they've made their own maze to try to get Marty from one destination to the next, and then having some very deep and rich discussions about, movement and just anything that the kids love to see. And, one of the best things I saw, especially with the kindergarten group, was the problem solving that was going on between students. They weren't coming to me going, hey, this thing doesn't work. I don't know how to do this. They were solving the problems together. And that was always such a great opportunity to see with the kids. We always teach so much about collaboration and working together. And, if there's a problem, not just to run to get help, like to try to figure it out. And I found Marty really helped amplify that part, because the kids, you have a group of 5-6 kids working together to try to get Marty to a destination. They absolutely loved it. They were solving problems. One of the problems we found was with one of the cards, it says go left, but they didn't realize that the Marty actually doesn't turn left. He just kind of shuffles to the left, but they figured it out. Okay, this is how he does it. So let's change our cards to help facilitate that. Then as time went on, I got an email and it was asking me about exploring the learning portal. And I know Michael's going to talk a lot about that, but as a teacher, I was like, oh, there's a learning portal. I'm going to take a look. Everything was super laid out really nicely. It was easy for me to find what I needed. It had nice intro lessons. It had lessons that you could pass along to other staff members if they were going to use it. For me, I personally just teach technology, so I always have it, but sometimes I like to lend things out to other teachers if they get an opportunity. And it was very, very easy, very, very user-friendly. Steps to follow along were great. And it helped give me some other ideas to work with Marty, because I was going on, okay, like these are some of the things I want to do, but it gave me another opportunity to find some things that, whoa, I didn't know it could do that either. So again, sorry, there's some more photos of the kids working with Marty through the maze. And I just found that like my lessons were directed more to it. The students were very involved in it. You know, and I felt confident giving those lesson plans with Marty to another staff member that maybe doesn't know much about computer science, you know, finds coding hard, any of those things. I was very, very happy to give them one of the lessons from the learning portal and just help them direct them. They're very user friendly, very, very great in a sense that like, hey, you know, I printed one off the day before, I was able to use it the next day, no problems. So for me, that made my life a lot easier as a teacher, you know, because I was like, oh, I've done the basic movements with Marty, what can I do now? And I went into the learning portal, found some other cool things we could do, and it was, you know, very simple, very straightforward. But in terms of comparing it to other robots within the classroom, we've gone through a bunch of them. We've gone through, you know, spheros and little microbits and Autobots and things like that. And, you know, they're great, but I haven't seen, when I brought Marty out, I think the kids really, really enjoyed looking at Marty, seeing like a real walking robot. You know, they love the fact that they get to customize it. They get to put the stickers on it. You know, they love the fact that, hey, you know what, when I tell, actually the biggest one is when I tell Marty to dance, he dances. They love Marty's dances. It's actually kind of funny when you watch them try to mimic his dance. You know, but it was those things. It was those little things like the dancing, to see the kids laughing, to see the kids happy, to see the kids enjoying, you know, computer science. Because I know with some of our learners, they're a little bit more reluctant, or they're a little bit scared because, you know, coding can be hard for some of them. You know, they're not following, you know, along, or they don't understand something. But I found with Marty, it kind of took that, you know, reluctancy and fear out of it, because they were like, look at him, he's, you know, he's got stickers on, I help decorate that. You know, if I don't feel confident using the iPad or the computer, I can use these cards, I can get him to walk, I can get him to dance, because like I said, everybody just wanted him to dance. So I found that with that, I found Marty just made more sense in the classroom with my guys, because they really love the fact that they basically got to control it. You know, often heard from students that, you know, Marty's futuristic, Marty is, you know, Marty's a robot, I'm going to train him to feed my dog. And he, you know, it was those other facts and other thoughts that were coming through the students' heads that really excited me. Like, oh, what more can I do with computer science? What more can I do with robotics? And it just helped me as a teacher to say, hey, you know what? I can start thinking about furthering their involvement in computer science or robotics or coding just because they're so excited about it now. And then, like I said, there's so many extra features that you can do with Marty through coding, through Scratch Jr, all these different things that really gets the kids involved. So even this year, starting back, one kid that used to use Scratch Jr with Marty has now upgraded to regular Scratch, and says like, if they did the Scratch Jr, they understand how it works, and now they're on Scratch and they're loving that opportunity well. You know, and then Marty also helps meet a lot of curriculum expectations for us. So I brought out the curriculum guide for me, and I was looking at some of the things I needed to do. And then I was like, you know what? Marty can reach all of those, you know, building patterns, and, you know, with one of our coding expectations, it's, you know, running a program that goes from point A to point B. And, you know, the kids love it because they're not just putting it on a computer screen, or they're not just cutting and pasting things on paper. They actually get to see what they've coded in their program run on Marty. And then with that, we took it steps further. Marty was the star of many stories, short videos, stop animations. It just kept going and going. And, you know, when I was doing a health class with a group, because I kind of meet every class, and sometimes I get into, doing health with some groups. Marty became the gym coach that was teaching everybody about healthy eating, exercising, all those fun things too. So I found too with Marty, it provided almost like a little voice for those kids that are kind of have a little bit of like fear in speaking, because they could sit off to the side and Marty could do his dance at the front, and they're talking about, eating, here's how many fruits and vegetables you need to eat in a day, or they're telling the story of Marty versus the dragon. So a lot of excitement, a lot of engagement. I was able to reach all of my curriculum expectations and input some of those ones into Marty, which really made me happy as a teacher. But like I said, the biggest thing that I've found with Marty for me was just when I bring Marty out in a classroom, if we're doing a lesson with Marty, the kids are absolutely just bonkers about it. They love it. And everybody wants a turn. And it's really nice to see, because like I said, the excitement for computer science has been amazing. And with a lot of these kids been on virtual school for the past couple of years, seeing them in the classroom now, getting that opportunity to use the robot, to put it back together, has really made me feel happy about them, getting involved in computer science, because, I have a big push at our school for computer science, and that's how I got into this role of being a technology teacher. And I feel like Marty has helped me bring a lot of excitement into computer science. And I'm like blown away by how great it has been in my classroom. And then, with certain events that happen and things like that, Marty gets dressed up, and the kids just love to like decorate or add things. And we've done things where they draw pictures of Marty on the beach. And it's funny because I've had a couple of teachers come to me and said they were doing a writing piece, and they were asking, who is this Marty guy that the kids keep talking about? And I show them, and then they were like, oh, is there a way I could use that? And I'm like, of course. And then having the learning portal available just makes life a lot easier for me to not have to, sit down for hours on end saying, this is how you do it. I say, hey, take this home tonight. Here's a lesson plan, try it out. So on my end, I'm quite excited, and with Marty, and I've felt like it's really, really helped my my classroom and the computer science within the entire building. So that's my experience as a teacher. And I think Michael's up next, if I'm correct.
Yeah, thank you so much for that, Chris. We've spoken before, but I've not heard the entire story. So that was really exciting and inspiring for me to hear just the ins and outs of how Marty was introduced into the curriculum and exactly how you used them in your classroom. So I really enjoyed that. Thank you for that. So we've mentioned Marty Box Jr. as kind of the most recent program that we've introduced to kind of bridge the unplugged coding and the scratch-based coding. And so Michael is going to take us through the learning portal and one of those Scratch Junior based lessons.
Right, I'm going to share my screen too, so you can have a look at the website to see what we have here. One sec. So in here. So this hopefully you're seeing okay. You see okay? This is robotical.io just now. And if I click at the top here for learning portal, it'll take you to where I work. So the learning portal here is, I think, fairly straightforward. When I scroll down here, there's a handy dandy search function box there you have. If you have been told by one of the people in your school, try this lesson, type the lesson and you'll get it right away, which is very, very helpful, I think, for quick use there. Below that one there, you'll see there are education standards. And these are broken up, as you can see, CSTA I have selected just now. Now, when I log on to usually in the morning, it gives me Scotland because I'm in Scotland, which makes sense. Wherever you are, you can choose the standard you want to have for your kids in your class. So wherever you are, like I just said, curriculum instructions gives me what I have for my group, and it will break it up as well into the different levels for different classes. So for CSTA, as I had there a second ago, these are the bands that you have in your document for CSTA. And you, of course, in the States, teachers in the States will know what these mean with regard to the grades you have and the ages for that. We'll get to that in just a second. Before I go on with an actual lesson, though, there's also selections here for topics, which are going to be modified soon to be more computing science based. So the idea is to have these more conceptual. Debugging is one that's there just now, but in creative writing will stay, but there'll be more things like if statements or conditionals, repeat blocks or loops, and things along that line to be more supportive of the computing science or computer science standards. Further down, we have environments. And someone asked in the chat a second ago, is there more than the Scratch Junior based environment? And yes, you can see here, beginning with Unplugged, which is the color cards that Chris so enthusiastically shared. And going on beyond that is the Marty controller, which is the remote control you have for other robots here. So we do have that unplug first, then first go with the app. So for a screen is the controller. But you'll see as well in the lesson plans that I've written that it's not just a case of this is how you go forward, this is how you go back. And I'll get into that in a minute and how I've made it more enriching for you as an educator and for the learners themselves for engagement. Next step is Marty Box Jr. and then Marty Blocks, which is a Scratch-based one. And finally, for the older learners in perhaps middle school or beyond, Python, which is a text-based programming language, is available as well. So there are 10 lessons there just now. Further on, you have other selections, and you can see these are the add-ons that are available for Marty just now. When you have Marty for a trial, you have him arrive with the IR sensor for the feet, and you'll have as well the color sensor. So you can see already there's 9 lessons for the color sensor, and there's 7 lessons for the IR sensor. So you are making use of this quite empowering, I guess, for the robot devices they can have, making Marty react to the environment rather than just having the learners in your class doing all the coding. So as Nat said, we're going to have a look quickly at the Marty Box Jr. So I'll click on there just now, and you'll see at the top here, you have the lessons there have now changed to be only Marty Box Jr. And I'm going to choose just now for me the 3rd lesson there, which is Let's Do That Again. Now I've tried to get some interesting kind of catchy titles here, rather than saying the repeat block, or rather than saying arguments. Just it's trying to make it more engaging for you because you're the one reading it, and for the kids so that they can see on the screen. When I click on here for Let's Do That Again, you have this format for all of the lessons. So on the left-hand side here is the table of contents. On the right-hand side here is the resource section. As I scroll down, they stay put. And I find that for me a very, very helpful thing because I'm regularly having to go up and down rather than having to scroll, though you can click to the next part you want to go to. And I find that, again, a big, big time saver when I'm looking at lessons myself. So on the right-hand side, too, are the resources you would use with your class. And for the younger learners, and that's the ones using Marty Unplugged, Marty Controller, and Marty Box Jr., they all have a story text. So the story text that is here can be read aloud without anything else to go with it, or it can be used with the presentation. We'll get to that in a bit once I go through the breakdown of how the lesson is displayed for each page. So at the very top, we have the lesson overview. And if you wanted to have a quick peek at the lesson, check it out. Is that what you want to do? If not, go to find another lesson. But if that kind of hits the nail on the head for you, keep reading further down. You'll get the learning objectives for the lesson, and then you'll get the 4 sections I've written it as: the warm-up, get learning, time for practice, and the cool down. Now, this is how I've tried to make this a good flow. The warm-up for these first learners in coding always features a story. So that will, again, I'll get to that in a second with the presentation up here, but just to go through it again, the warm-up here is getting the kids active before they have to sit down and do the actual formal learning. So we have some talk. There could be a game or an activity that involves movement to get the learners energized themselves rather than just thinking coding right away. The get learning section is when the learners are together. So this part here is something they're going to see. And you'll find oftentimes within the lesson plan, you'll have some videos, and these are all ready to go, queued right away. This is for the repeat block, so I have 2 videos. One is these 3 women dancing, and of course they repeat their dance routine. And one is what's called an ostinato, which is a repeating musical score. So get to listen to the music that repeats. You'll get to see the dance moves that repeat. To have, again, a connection for the younger learners. What does that mean? What does repeat block mean? You'll get to see it and you'll get to hear it, and then they'll get to do it. And so that very multisensory approach is what I'm hoping will engage more learners than just being told what it means. As I go further down, after we learn together, time for practice is where they come and they do it in their groups. Now, Chris was talking about collaboration, and I have to say that has been my goal with the learning resources I'm creating, is to encourage kids to work together. If you ever have a chance yourself to look at people who are coders, perhaps a brother, sister, or someone older, or husband or the spouse, husband or wife or spouse that you have, if they're a coder, they'll more than likely tell you they don't do things in isolation. More often than not, in the coding environment, it's a paired programming setup that they have, so that one person is perhaps a navigator, or one is a coder. And with younger learners, I think it's a bit optimistic to think you would only need two to be able to accomplish the goals you have for the lesson. So we encourage having more than two, 3 or 4 in a group, perhaps more than that, even depending upon the learners that you have. You would know the better than us, of course. Having that opportunity, though, to think, pair, share ideas, to have things out loud before you have to sit down and plan is the way we're recommending for every single lesson that we have on Robotical. It's that discussion, it's that trial and error, and it's that encouragement from each other that I think really pushes the outcomes, the objectives to be met for each lesson. So the time for practices exists there. With this is the work that they would do, and they're going to come back at the cool down and share with you what they did well, what they found challenging, and perhaps why. And the idea again in the cool down is you're going to have a chance to talk with them about their successes and their challenges. And that's when the whole group gets to respond together. Oh, we had that too. We did this. Did you try it? And that communication, that engagement is hopefully going to even further develop their understanding and their learning. At the bottom here, you'll see extensions and support. So that something to extend, something to support the learners. And I feel it's vitally important to have both of these in every lesson, so I do. The extensions for those learners who are quite well with it, quite accomplished, quite confident already. They perhaps met the objectives fairly quickly, but you don't want to have a busy activity for them. I think it's quite insulting to say, okay, you can go play with it, you can go color it, you can go help with it, or so, no, I want you to do more. We have the objectives here. Let's extend that, take it farther, because that's what extension should be all about. And the same with support. What I have here for the lesson is the objectives for everyone. There's not a watered down objective, and there's not a big and chunky, more challenging objective. There's the lesson objectives, full stop. And this is how we can support learners to get there. This is how we can extend learners beyond that. So it's really a case of what can I do to enable every learner to achieve in the lesson that we have to work with. And that's the goal at the end. The bottom here too, below the additional reading, you'll see the many different curricular areas. And so curriculum focus is selected there just now. I'll change it to CSTA, and you'll see now these are the 2 objectives that the 2 outcomes that this lesson addresses. There are lots of them over the course of the lessons. I've done my best to see how I can have not the same thing over and over and over again, because that's not going to help your planning in the long term, or even the medium term for your year. The goal is to have you addressing a breadth of outcomes, a breadth of standards, so that you can say, like Chris said, Marty does enable you or encourage you to meet these objectives for my region where I am and for the age with which I'm working. Just now we have, as you can see here, curriculum fluxes is for Scotland, national curriculum for England, CSTA is for the USA generally, and we'll be adding to these 2 for individual states as we go through in future, and adding, of course, Canada. Don't forget Canada, Chris. And I know there are a fair few provinces. I grew up in Canada too, so I'm looking forward to adding the centers for different provinces in Canada. Australia is here as well, as you can see, and I don't think there's a limit for us saying, well, we have 6, that's enough. I think we're always looking to enable this learning to be easily implemented in a variety of other centers too. So this section is going to grow bigger and bigger over time. That's my goal anyway, so that we can enable other regions, other teachers in different regions to more easily implement their learning with computing science or computer science. And I'll go back to the topic again. I'm going to go through now the fun part, I think, which is the presentation. So I've just downloaded it just now. I'll open that one up, and I'm really hopeful you can still see this on the screen. Fantastic. All right. So I'm not going to put it in presentation mode because I want you to see what I can see. I'll click on Enable Editing too. This is something that will pop up every time because when you get your download, I want you to change it for you. Yeah, this is something I wrote, and it's something I think will work, but that doesn't mean, that's not to say that you would want to use it this way. Also, there's this other one too. I might actually get the video to work now, Kate. Let's just see. Click on Enable Content too, because since this was downloaded from the internet, it's a case of, do you trust the content? Click on yes, because if you don't, you won't get any extra features. So hopefully, fingers crossed, we can see more than I was able to show in a practice trial run earlier this week. As I go through then, let's do that again as the title for the lesson. Every presentation starts with this. So there's not like, you're not getting a title on the front page. It's just Marty the Robot's who it is. The second side has your objectives. The third side has your success criteria. And that is the norm. Across the board, every single time you'll see title, Marty the Robot, second slide objectives, third side is the success criteria. It's nice to have some things that are quite standardized in that way. So now you'll see at the bottom here, and I'm not sure you can read it on your screens, the story begins. So I'll just read this first part. So this one here is lesson, just now it's lesson 5, I think it was lesson 5. Just quickly double check them right there. Lesson 4, sorry. It's not going to be lesson 4 in the long run. For just now, it's lesson 4 because as I add more lessons and I'm filling in gaps, I'm adding to things as well. So just now it's lesson 4 for what's first level in Scotland. As Marty traveled more and more between different spaces and performed different actions, they wondered if there was a way they could waste less time reading and writing long instructions. Marty went to talk with Archie about this, and Archie asked the children of the village what they thought. The first thing Archie asked the children was, are there any actions you can carry out each day that usually have the same action again and again? Yes, answered a confident girl. I get up, have breakfast, then go wash myself, brush my teeth. I do this every morning. Now, as I go through here, the narrative continues. So the story is going to keep going through as I go from slide to slide. I just lost my headphones. Whoops, I'll plug it in later, it's fine. As I go down though, the pictures are accommodating or supporting the text as I go. And this side here, in my view, isn't very nice. However, I swapped just now to the slideshow. Now here is the first part of the slide. So Archie went back to his workshop and stayed there thinking and planning for a long time. Eventually he left and shared with learners his idea. Archie described what he had made as the repeat block. I have a mouse click. This is a block that will make Marty do the same thing again and again and again. Hopefully this will make writing and reading instructions easier for everyone. So then I have in the italic text there, find this block in the far right section, the one that's red, and it's the second block with the curved arrow. So that's you using Marty Box Jr, you'll see where to find it. And those little notes come out every so often, and I think I have a spelling mistake. It should say in, yes, there you go, in. My apologies there. I'll fix it on the website in a second too. So as I go down now, you'll see that these ideas for what we're looking at, sharing with learners where to find things, is a very big part of the lesson as I go. We're going to this one here now, and I get to see an example now of Marty actually working, and fingers crossed, we'll watch it together. I can see the big button, so I think it'll work. And again, this is within the lesson, so this is within the presentation. The videos here are going to help you to show the learners what they're going to be doing later on. Now this part here as well, it's giving you what the display is going to show in the notes there. So it's just for you to read again because it's in the italics. You can talk about with the learners what they've seen and what they expected. And that's based upon these previous slides too. Sorry, that's my daughter. Anyway, going on. The presentation continues showing more graphics to support and more videos to support. So this one here is showing you number of blocks of code. This shows you the same blocks of code with Marty in action. And it's that again, rather than having just talking with learners and that being it, it's the immediate visual connection to what Marty's going to do with what I'm showing them on the screen. And that I think is a big plus, one for educators who may be less confident or a bit nervous, and two for learners who are very visual in their learning ability. They want to see what this is going to do right away. As I said too, the videos for dancing are in here, and you'll see right away, here we go. This is what it means to repeat. This is choreographic repetition. And I pause it there. And the next one, as I said as well, is the musical repetition. Now, as it's playing, you can talk with learners. What do you hear? What's repeating again and again? It's actually a quite fun, complex sort of repeat sound because there's three things repeating. Anyway, I'll stop that now. I think I'd heard that 50 times as I writing the lesson just to make sure it's all good. So I got very good at it. So I go on though, and I've now broken down here what I'm showing the learners. This is the part that repeats. How can we have that happen with repeat blocks? And then I show them. This is how that one can repeat. So again, at the bottom here, I'm having text to encourage educators to engage with the learners. That I think is the biggest goal. I don't want to just have something being shown and you don't know what to say. Now, this is the part which I want to really hammer home too. If you don't know what I wrote, change it, put something else, because this presentation is now yours. And that's what I want to really to share with you as an educator is, you know your class better than me. I'm just being general here. I'm giving you a standardized idea of what you can have. You get to take the resource we've made for you and make it yours by adding in there different names for the characters if you like. You can add a bit to the story to make it in your city. You can, again, you can change things here for what you want to do for the challenge. Do they need to know that much? Do they need to know more? You can add what you want there. So that one there, it hasn't gone back. It's empty now because you want to change it. So you can go ahead. Now, of course, this doesn't affect what's on the website because I downloaded this onto my computer. So don't worry, it's not going to change on the website. So again, I have an example here of Marty doing the loop. Now, this one here, though, I think, like play it, just see what he does. I think it was again. Let's just see how he goes. What's he doing? Now, what did he repeat? Let's just see. Does he repeat something here? Is he doing the same thing again? So now I'm asking learners, what did you see? What movements happened again? Did you see something repeat there? Has something happened for a third time? We break it down and we have a look at the movements. Now, where would we put our coding blocks? How am I going to write that? How am I going to plan for that? And this all comes into the process as we go forward. So the story continues. The teacher can keep reading now as we go through it until the end. And at the end, I have a point here now where you as an educator can put ideas here. When your learners are talking to you, you can record the feedback that they had right there. And when you save this document, it then becomes for you a piece of evidence. You could even put down Susan said or James said, and this again becomes the record. So when they come back to it at a later lesson and repeats, you could say, do you remember, James, when you said this? And you say, oh yeah, wow, I get it now. And that recap, I think, is a nice part of it too. And one suggestion I was given as well from the educators who've looked at my work before is that it's nice to have the objectives and the success criteria at the end to remind themselves and to remind learners, so that's there for you too. And one last quick thing I want to show you from the lesson is the teacher guide, which is here again for you. This is the part which will tell you what everything means. So let's do that again, repeat blocks. What's a repeat block? Might be the first time you've ever heard of them or seen them. So this is telling you how they work and what they do. For planning, what's the planning I'm going to do with regard to Marty blocks here? This is how you can work through that one and what the planning means. At the bottom, I also have the code I have here and how that works. So it's talking about breaking down the steps and what each thing means. And the text is there for you again. That's why it's written. And the very last thing, which is one more example of the evidence you could have. I'll open up just now the workbook, which is downloaded on the other screen. There we go. So depending upon which resources you have for the learners in your class, this is something we would like to eventually have on OneNote for schools, so that when this gets pushed out to learners, they don't print it out. But just now it can be printed out. By enabling editing again, I can put my answers in this page. And that would be my goal, to be environmentally friendly, to not have waste of resources. Let's have learners type digitally and record their evidence there. Again, that makes it easier for you to keep track of things too, rather than having 20 odd pieces of paper in your binder. You have 20 odd documents in your folder, which is much, much lighter to carry home. So hopefully, again, this idea of making things in one place. Everything's here clickable for you, with the table of contents quite handy to get to everywhere you're going to. And the resources on the side too, always there for you. The idea is to make it as easy as we can for you to engage learners and to encourage learning.
Amazing. Thank you so much for that, Michael. I just have a few questions here. The first one that I can see is actually for Chris. And it says, Chris, how hard is it to get set up with Marty in your classroom?
You know, when I first got Marty, I was a little bit overwhelmed by it. I was like, whoa, this is not just a little robot in a box with a charger. It looked a little bit thing. But once you kind of open the box and pull it out, it was very easy to set up within the class. Very easy. You know, everything's directed. You know, there's a nice power button there. Battery goes in. Everything. Life was good. It was very easy. It was. I think when I first saw it, I was just a little bit overwhelmed. But as soon as I opened it up and went with it, it was fantastic. Easy to use.
Amazing. There's another one here that I think is also for you, Chris. It's what do you think it was about Marty that really got the kids excited?
You know, with Marty, I really think it's the fact that, you can design it yourself. You can make it whoever you want to make it, like we've had Marty, we've had Martina, we've had it change into Cosmics. It's been all over the place. I think the fact that students have that option to kind of make it their own. And the fact that it has the arms, it has the legs, it has the eyes, like it looks like, one of those futuristic robots we see in movies that the kids that's a quote from the kids. It's one of those futuristic robots that looks from the movies. But they just get to see it kind of, this thing might actually be, something that could, build my Lego for me so I don't have to. Like, I think that really builds the excitement is they get to kind of, first of all, they get to make it their own. And second of all, the look of it is like a real robot that they get to work with.
Cool. I think this one is for you, Michael, or either actually. It says, how do I get the more reluctant students engaged if they don't appear interested?
You want to go first, Chris? I'll talk as well.
Yeah, like I said, I had a few kids that were a little bit reluctant around it. But then again, it was one of the things watching the other kids get involved. Then, Marty dancing really brought them out of it. It's when I did my lesson on the board and showed them like, hey, look at how easy it can be to do. I think they kind of had that similar feeling to me, like, oh, this is a little overwhelming. I might not be able to do that. But, I started them off slowly with the color coding cards and moved up to Scratch Junior. And then we can move up to Scratch. Even some of the older kids I teach around 9, 10, we started with the color coding cards and then we go to Scratch Junior. Then we move up to Scratch. Just give them that confidence to, hey, Marty is easy to use. And, it is something that they really, really will enjoy once they get going.
Well, to add to that, there's a couple of things I've tried to do with the lesson plans as they are now. One of them with the story is to engage learners with the characters in the story. The characters are stuck. They don't know what to do. You need to help them. So it's that you're taking a personal view in the lives of these children, and of Marty too. You need to help Marty get to where they're going. It's that I want to help. I don't know how to yet, but I want to help. And the second thing is that throughout the lesson planning and the teacher guides is the idea of learners can make mistakes, and that's okay. Mistakes are good, in fact, because mistakes promote learning. It's that if I get it wrong, it's not the end of the world. And that's for the educator as well. And there are a couple of cases I've made reference to, it's okay for you to get it wrong as an educator. In fact, that's helpful because if you can fix your mistake and the learner see you working forward from that, not stopping there and giving up and not being too afraid to do so, it's going to encourage them to try. It's going to encourage them to give that first step. As Chris is saying, it can be a bit daunting at first, but if they're seeing that mistakes are not the end of the world, as you'll see in the lessons on debugging, it's all about mistakes. There are mistakes in everything I've done there. So it's them to come in and save the day, as it were. They're to come in and see, okay, what has someone done wrong here? How can we address it? How can we fix that? That's the goal. It's not perfect on the first attempt. It's first attempt, and then better on the second attempt. Not perfect on the second attempt. It's always progress, always getting better. And that's what I'm trying to emphasize.
Yeah, and just going back to my story too, like watching those kids, the 4 or 5 year olds work on it and then not get frustrated when it didn't work the first time. Just we go over that so often about the mistakes, and hey, if we all didn't make mistakes, then we wouldn't be where we are. We have to make mistakes, and the kids, just seeing with Marty with those color coding cards, it not working the first time, but them not getting frustrated and like, okay, I give up. I agree with you, Michael. That's a huge part of it. So they love it.
We have a couple of questions. Oh, sorry, a couple of very similar questions. So one of them was, what was next after Marty Blocks? I teach grades 4 and 5, and I see that there's also a question here about using Marty in upper elementary students.
Okay, well, I can go there. I would recommend what Chris actually said, and what he was recommending was begin at the beginning. I think that whenever you have a new tool, new device, and haven't used it before, using something with something that you don't is a challenge. So go back to the beginning there. The color cards introduce you to Marty. The app controller further introduces you to what Marty can do in terms of movement. And then Marty Box Jr, which is based upon Scratch Jr, and Marty Blocks, again, based upon Scratch, is what will be extending them farther. So if they've already seen the likes of Scratch in isolation with the Scratch Cat, using Marty Blocks is not a big jump in terms of learning those two environments. It's just that when you have Marty the Robot, who isn't Scratch Cat, very, very much not the Scratch Cat, because of the way that Marty interacts with the real environment versus the Scratch Cat being on a 2D screen, it's nice to have that progression of color cards, app control, Marty controller, Marty Box Jr and Marty Blocks. I would say absolutely these Marty Blocks lessons are where you're shooting for. It's nice to have that opportunity with the older learners to see, okay, I can code Marty to do something. Can I code Marty to react to something? The reactions are fun. There are lessons there now on the lesson portal for the obstacle sensor, the ground sensor, for the light sensor and the noise sensor, and for the distance sensor. So these are 5 sensors that Marty has that are add-ons that are available. The color sensors, sorry, 6 sensors. They're all there now. So like I said at the beginning there, the IR sensor and color sensor come with Marty on the trial, so you can try that out with them right away. Having that opportunity to code something that means when I press play, Marty's going to go, and Marty is going to change where they go depending upon the environment. It's no longer you pressing stop or pressing right left on the app controller, the Marty controller. It's no longer you putting on the color cards anymore. Now it's the program that's taking over, and Marty is responding. That's a magical thing to have that opportunity for learners to see. I coded Marty to react, not just to do, but to React, that's a step above what you can do. Well, you can in Scratch when you have touched this card or touched that color, but it's the real world, and it's a different. I think it's a different ballgame.
And I think that's something. Sorry, Chris, go ahead.
I was just gonna say I've done Marty with up to grade 5, so 4s and 5s, and I did start with the color coding cards, and not one of them ever felt like, hey, you know, why are we doing this as basic stuff? They understood that there's a process to it, and they actually quite enjoyed the color cards, because you know they wanted to see, you know, if I put forward, how far is he going to go forward before he stops or before I have to do something else. So, you know, with grade 4s and 5s, even going back to the basics part with them was just, it was phenomenal. They still had a great love and excitement for it.
Yeah. The only thing I would add is that obviously, you know, we do have lessons that get quite complicated in Scratch with the parallel programming and lots of different kind of sensors. But we do also have a Python library for Marty as well, because I know some of the schools in Hong Kong teach Python as early as upper elementary, and Russia as well. We have a distributor in Russia that translated Python lessons for upper elementary. So I think I will probably close it to questions there, and just remind everyone about the free trial. I'm actually going to share a link to the exclusive free trial for CSTA. So you can book the free trial through this link. What will happen is one of our team will chat to you a little bit about your school and your requirement, and get the dates right in terms of when is the optimal time to send over the Marty, and then book training with you. So when you do get your Marty, you can get trained up on exactly how to connect Marty, and then which lessons in the learning portal are kind of optimal for your students and what you're trying to achieve. And then the only thing I would say is that we also offer a 10% discount to all CSTA members if you do decide to go on to purchase Marty as well. And I see people here are saying bye and they have to run. Thank you so much for coming. We appreciate you joining us today. I know it's lunchtime for some, evening for others, so we really appreciate your time. So thank you very much. And yeah, thank you to Chris and Michael. I don't know, Kate, if you've got anything else to add.
Hey, yeah, that was awesome. Also, Marty is so cute. I was just gonna say, if you had to step in later or had to drop off this, or you're watching this later, which I guess now I'm talking to future people, is the recording will be sent out, and we'll follow up. But yeah, definitely recommend trying it out. I've heard wonderful things from teachers, and we just appreciate it from being here. And then Nat, Chris, Michael, thanks so much for showing us. Those lesson plans were amazing. I've seen a lot of different classroom products and things, and like I've seen some really bad ones, and that was really thorough. I'm very transparent. Like that was very thorough and great, and just I'm excited to share it. Awesome. Well, thanks so much. Feel free to drop off. Oh, go ahead.
Thank you.
I just wanted to say thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks very much. Thanks for coming, everyone. Great to have you.
Awesome. All right. Well, we'll follow up via email next week with the recording, and we'll talk to y'all later. Stay safe. Thank you.